How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that comfortable?
Yeah.
For you? All right. I've been doing this podcast for a bunch of years, and I think actually now it's your third time.
Third time.
Yeah.
Good.
So you're a Gold Club member.
Good.
Because you came on for the one on the National Gallery. I think you called the film National Gallery.
Right.
And Jackson Heights. I love them all. Let's put it that way. It's been
Thank you.
this one. There was a screening here that they invited me to, and I thought, what better place, of course, to see Ex Libris,
Right.
the New York Public Library. And then I ended up taking my kid away, so then he sent me a link, and I watched it, though. I did watch it on a nice screen, but, it was at home. But I figured, I don't want to do that generally with your films because, they require a lot of attention. They're longer than the average documentary. And, there's too many temptations when you're not in the movie theater watching it to stop, pause, and all. But I didn't do that. I watched it straight through. I'm not saying I'm proud of myself, but I'm saying that's the quality of the film and the reaction I had to it.
Good.
So,
Well, great.
well done once again.
Thank you.
First question, is the New York Public Library, it's a separate organization than, let's say, the Brooklyn Public Library and the Queens Public Library, right?
The New York Public Library is the public library for Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island.
Right.
Queens and Brooklyn each have their own separate systems, although I think all the systems work together.
At some level, they must. But
Well, they do in the sorting and distribution of books, and they talk to each other. I don't think they're rivals.
No. It was just interesting. I guess I kind of knew that because I think I have I've had like 3 different memberships, and I realized as I was reading through some of the materials, the promotional materials for the film, that they only mentioned that Manhattan and the Bronx and Staten Island. And so over those 92 branches, those are within those 3 boroughs, correct?
Right.
And you visited how many, roughly?
I probably visited about 20. There are 13 different locations in the film.
Okay. Oh, so in other words, a bunch didn't make it into the final cut. And did you? This is called the what? This is the
Schwartzman Building.
Schwartzman Building.
Yeah.
And which is most known known mostly to people as the main, I guess, what they call the main public library. Mostly known for the Lions.
The archives are here.
The archives are here. And the
Lions
are in the
children's library here, and the administration is here.
Right.
And I don't know, some of that may change because there's going to be a renovation of the building.
Is that true? I'm going to mention we're in the Schwartzman Building right now.
We're in the Schwartzman Building now.
It's kind of always.
It's a beautiful old building.
I love it here. Yeah. Any opportunity that I get, it's like timeless being back in here.
The reading, well, I mean, it's the main library and the beautiful reading rooms.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you grew up in Boston,
right?
Did you attend the Boston Public Library much?
Well, I went to the Boston Public Library, and I went to school in a suburb of Boston called Brookline, and I used the Brookline Public Library a lot.
Separate city, actually, right?
Yeah,
Even though they are up against each other, they're pretty close to Back Bay. I lived near Coolidge Corner myself, so I know.
Well, that's Brookline.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So you frequented, would you say? Were you a big reader as a kid?
I went to the Brookline Public Library a lot because I, both to take out books and to do research papers when I had those kind of assignments.
And so...
and I also went to the Boston Public Library.
Where was that branch?
Copley Square.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to say.
main
That's
branch.
where all the governmental building municipalities are.
No. That's down near Park Street.
Hey, don't correct me on my podcast in the future, please. Okay, because I lived in Boston.
It's actually down near Scauley Square.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My kid went to summer camp and he came back with that one song. He was so shocked when I knew Charlie and the MTA. He just sang it. He said, "How do you know that song?" I said, "Well, what do you think? They just wrote that last week. They sang it at my summer camp too." You remember that song, right? Charlie and the MTA.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't know that song? I'll have to sing it for you later. I will. I will. I guess I just wonder what took you so long. It's 40-some films into your career now, and it took you this long to get around to doing a documentary about the public library.
Well, you could say that about any of them.
Yeah, well, I guess so. But you weren't a ballet dancer.
Well, no,
and
but it took
you
me a
did
long
that
time
one
to
10
get
years
around.
ago.
Well,
yeah.
But the fact that I wasn't a ballet dancer might mean I should have started earlier in doing ballet movies. No, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason about the order of the films. It's chance. I mean, one day I thought, well, I hadn't done a library, and I should try the New York Public Library. So I called up Anthony Marks, and he said, come see him. And I came to see him, and he said, okay.
Is he the president of
He's the president of the library.
Of the library. Speaking of the president and all that, there were one, of course, the many perspectives of or regular things we visit along the line during the film is some of their meetings of the senior executives, I guess,
right.
Of the library, the New York Public Library system. And one of them, and I'm going to forget her name, of course, but she was saying how, most people, their perception of the library is that it's a place just to borrow books. And that because books have become less of a popular medium with the advent of digital media, that books are less relevant on some level, or the physical book, and that they had to kind of change the public perception of what a library is really for, which is to come in for information. Did I get that roughly correct?
Yeah, no, you did, yeah. But, I think the person that said that is the architect that's going to be doing some redesigning of some of the Schwartzman building and some of the other buildings. But, I mean, the New York Public Library, and I think it's true of most libraries, they're great democratic institutions. And in addition to their archival aspect, the fact that in the various branches in the boroughs, they're offering, they're very active in offering hundreds of courses to people who want to start businesses, learn languages, learn about computers. Their after-school programs. The New York Public Library is very active in terms of its outreach and contribution to new immigrant groups and to people who want to improve their educational work possibilities.
Sure. And even, there's one conversation that we're privy to, which it's such you use the term, there's a democratization at the library.
Well, it's true.
No.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's even this very, very sort of a sober conversation. It's very serious about the homeless situation. Not that it's a problem. They don't even kind of couch it that way. They just say it's causing some conflict among other people here, but that they took this very seriously, that the library should on some level even be available for those that are homeless.
Well, the library is available to anybody who doesn't disturb the peace.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a identity card to get in.
Mm-hmm.
You need some kind of identification to take something, or take a book out. But as long as someone is not disorderly, they can spend as much time as they want in the library. But it's not only that it's accessible to everyone, but it offers these wide variety of programmatic and educational possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
The library, in a sense, the activities of the library represent everything that the current administration in Washington is against.
Yeah.
The library is democratic, it's open, it believes in helping people, it's related to the immigrant and ethnic and racial communities. It encourages people to improve their levels of education, and it's the non-prejudicial, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And the values that the library represents are totally contrary to what's coming out of Washington.
Yeah, well, to say the least. And do you find that it's maybe the most democratic in that regard of any organization you can think of today?
It's impossible to measure it, but it's certainly one of the great it's one of the great democratic institutions because it's not only its rhetoric, but its practice. In practice, it's a great democratic institution. It's not, it's not one of those places that bullshits about democracy.
Right.
It
They
represents
walk the walk.
It represents the best of democracy.
Yeah. Right. And in fact, I would say that probably I'm going to say the wealthiest people, maybe while they may be on the board or they may contribute and donate or whatever, they don't necessarily use the library as much as everybody else. I don't know.
I don't know either. But I mean, in a sense, this movie is a movie about New York. I mean, it's about literally about the New York Public Library, but it's also about New York because in the movie you see all races, ethnicities, and social classes.
Yeah, and there are branches all over. Did you find that the branches that are in the Bronx, for instance, maybe in a neighborhood that's maybe struggling more economically, that the library was, of course, reflected that, or are they well taken care of? Because I know you spent some time at the Bronx.
The library was putting a lot of resources into the poorer neighborhoods because those are the people that need the help the most and want the help.
Yeah.
And want the opportunity.
Yeah. The communication seemed like such an enormous priority among all the branches that you visited, because there were lots of really meetings about trying to connect on all levels in terms of all the different programs and all of the priorities that the library has. It was very abundantly clear that communication was key to make things work, maybe more even than being able to rely on, financial support, which they can never really predict.
The New York Public Library, as someone says in the film, or said in the film several times, is a great example of a public-private partnership because roughly half the money comes from the city and state, mainly the city, and the rest of the money comes from contributions. I mean, which is what Andrew Carnegie had in mind when he donated money to set up the New York Public Library system. It's a very successful example of a public-private partnership.
When you went up to the Bronx, there's this one segment which is where you're in the Bronx, and was it my understanding that a couple of the kids didn't want to come in to the building because you were shooting in there? Was that part of?
I don't know where you got that, but I never.
I know. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. So don't get defensive now.
I didn't. That was not.
Do you remember the scene though? I think it was in the Bronx scene where they're having a meeting, and one of the what's the gentleman? Anthony Marks. Tony Marks, and that he came up to the Bronx for one of the, I guess, that branch meeting or something. Yeah. Okay, and it sounded like there were some kids that were uncomfortable coming in because maybe it was
That's not in the movie.
I'm going to have to challenge you on let's go to videotape here. Nothing's happening, but I tried it. No, you don't remember the scene. Okay, it's not so.
It's important. Not in the movie.
There is something. Okay, maybe I need to rewatch it. I'm telling you, I watched this. Maybe I started to get in. Maybe I drifted into a dream, and it took me. I thought there was a scene up at that Bronx meeting, but maybe I'm misremembering one thing. You didn't see the kids. They were supposedly didn't want to come in to the branch, but maybe I'll try to find that clip and bring it to your.
Maybe I've forgotten it, but I don't think so.
Okay, that could happen. You've made enough films where you're not going to remember every moment in every film. There's no way.
I tend to actually, because I've looked at them so often and heard them so often.
Right. Did you go to not to get too far adrift from the actual film we're talking about, which again is Ex Libris, right? It's called the New York Public Library subtitle. But because you do so many, I guess we can call them either institutional or educational screenings, and right, it's a big part of Zipporah is it's an educational distribution of the films or institution.
Zipporah distributes the films, right?
Of course. And do you often want to sit through them as you're, because
No, I rarely sit through them once they're finished because I know them pretty well.
Yeah.
I can recite the dialogue in almost all the films by heart because I've looked at them so often.
During the editing and the shooting, you're there for the shooting ostensibly, right? And then the editing, right?
Right.
So by the end of it,
I have a pretty good idea what's in it. Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you have this round then because I can't prove my case. I really wasn't going to say much more than I just felt like that might have been a case. I'm talking again about that Bronx moment, which I clearly misinterpreted. I'm not going to challenge Frederick Wiseman, but that it seemed as though almost that your camera, it was kind of recognized as being in the film because it's not frequently where people reference the cameras.
It's very rare that anybody objects to being filmed.
Right.
Very rare. I mean, a quarter of a half of 5% of 1% of the sequence. I mean, it rarely happens that anyone either refuses to be filmed or acts for the camera.
Oh, no, I know. And I've talked to you about that in the past, so I'm not treading over that again. But and what your approach is in order to make people feel at ease and all that. More just to the this idea that maybe the library itself was a place where some kids may not want to be seen as leaning on that as a safe haven.
Oh, that may be. But,
you see what I'm saying?
Some kids may not. I mean, I have no idea. I didn't have that experience.
Because in some rougher spots, or where their parents are working or not available to, after school, it's great for kids to have a place that they feel safe in.
That's one of the great values of the library is
Yeah.
they have these after school programs, and people know that their kids are safe,
Right.
Because they're attending class. And the parents encourage the kids to go to the library. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about like growing up in the inner city, or in not just in any part of the city, and there's always this thing. The library is one of those safe havens for kids, and the libraries have always made that a part of what they offer. That you can come in after school, sit quietly, do your homework, stay out of trouble. I mean, again, any kid can get into trouble when they're not doing their work, I guess, or not in a safe environment. Let's put it that way. So maybe there's some peer pressure. I was thinking, and maybe that's what I thought. Why I brought up that scene again. But the Ex Libris is going to be playing at the Film Forum from September I have it right 13th. No, yes, it is through the 26th.
Yeah,
I'm going to do the math here. It looks like it's 2 weeks at the Film Forum in New York City. Is it screening anywhere else, by the way?
Yeah, it's opening maybe in about 40 cities around the country.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to drag you through naming all those. So it's opening. That's wonderful. Is that at this point even big, or is that about right? Last few bunch of films?
Ultimately, it'll probably play in about 70 or 80 cities in America.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's not opening in 2,500 theaters, but that means that maybe it'll play in 70 or 80 theaters, which is quite good.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
How many people can say they can do that? How many filmmakers can do that? I mean, it's not so easy these days.
There's possibility. It's hard, but there's possibility for independent films to get out there now.
Yeah. And it's like Jackson Heights, a huge, great press, great. I know that was a big success.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big success critically. None of my movies are big successes commercially.
Right. Well, you're kind of challenging the average moviegoer in that sense, whose maybe attention span, has been shaved down quite a bit over the years. But
I mean, some of the movies are long. Some of them are. Some of them are only 80 minutes, but some of them are 3.5, and occasionally 4 hours. But I feel the movies that are longer are long because the subject is complicated, and I feel that I have an obligation to the people who gave me permission to accurately or try to accurately reflect the complexity of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And you honor the institution by it's just an exquisite window into the museum, the same thing, the National Gallery, Ex Libris. I really enjoy. I had such a. I loved it. I really enjoyed it on a personal level. So you're going to be making appearances in New York anyway. If you're in New York or in the New York area,
right?
You're going to be at a couple of the screenings. Right, there'll be
a couple of screenings.
I think at the Thursday, the 13th, rather Wednesday the 13th, Thursday the 14th.
Right.
At the 7:45, after the 7:45 screening, so around midnight. No, I'm kidding. No. Around 10:30 or so, or whatever it is, you'll be there to greet your adoring fans. And then also, the Film Forum is coming back with part 2 of the retrospective.
The Film Forum, over the course of about 8 months, is showing all my movies. They showed a group of them in the spring, early summer, and they're showing a group of them starting next week.
Yeah,
starting on the 6th, I think.
It's great to have not only you making these documentaries, but an organization like Film Forum who's dedicated to showing all of your work to people, and maybe a new generation.
Film Forum has been very generous to me, and they've shown a lot of my movies, and I appreciate that.
So now you're not only working with Karen, but you're working with Bruce Goldstein too, right?
Right.
With the retrospective, right? I just, it's funny because in the last 6 months or 8 months, I've actually, for the first time, and I've been doing this for a bunch of years too, I had them both on separately. But I invited them both onto the podcast. So I have some wonderful conversations with both Bruce and Karen Cooper.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, they came out so beautiful. They're both so, it's great because people should have an opportunity. These people operate quietly, maybe Karen more so than the average, but they operate behind the scenes. And for my audience, I think they really...
Well, then they make, not just because they show my movies, but they make they make good movies available.
But it's because programmers like that you get, it's a small piece of what allows you to continue making the films you make,
exactly.
right? Because they're such champions of Frederick Wiseman films, and as am I, on my own way too. Well, I have a lot of memories. I grew up on the mean streets of Forest Hills, as I call it, in Queens in the 70s. And just blocks from a public library. Spent a lot of time there myself. So I may have to do a documentary about that, the Queens libraries. It seems only fair.
Sure, well, then you go on to Brooklyn.
well, which is where I've called home for many years myself. So I'm kind of torn. But my heart is with that little... I think it was on, I can't remember the street. It was right off Queens Boulevard in Forest Hill, right by Jewel Avenue, I think. There was a small library which I spent many afternoons.
Well, there's one in the film. There's one, there's a library, I think at 151st in Malcolm X. It's a one-room library.
Yeah.
It's about the size of the room we're in now, where they had a terrifically vibrant and useful program. And one of the most interesting scenes in the film takes place there.
Yeah. I know, like, for instance, you're going to be doing this event with Errol Morris coming up also here at the New York Public Library. I wanted to mention that. Do you know about it?
Yes.
For a second, I wasn't sure.
Right.
And that, I'm going to just mention it. I don't know if it's not something that's, but by the time I post this, I'm sure it's going to be, tickets will be available if they're not currently. I'm pretty sure by now tickets will be available. You're going to have a conversation with Errol Morris here at the Schwartzman Building. It's part of the Live at the New York Public Library series, which is actually in the documentary.
Right.
You visited a couple of events. Right. And so that's going to be on Thursday, September 14th. So you're going to be in New York, busy for at least a few days in mid-September. Tickets are available at nypl.org/live, just in case people are listening, and maybe there's some tickets left. I would love to be at that. But do you generally get to, hang out with other documentary filmmakers, or are you just too busy with moving on to one project to another?
A friend of mine.
Well, you're neighbors too, right?
But actually, I work most of the time, so I don't hang out.
That's what I mean.
A lot at all.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. You don't feel isolated?
No, well, I live a lot in Paris now, so,
I'm sorry about
when I finish working, I go to the theater, something like that.
Yeah, they do love the cinema in Paris, don't they?
Yeah, it's good. Well, in Paris, it's still a city where in the course of a year you can probably see all the great movies ever made because there's so many retrospective houses there.
Yeah. I mean, within walking distance, how many would you say?
They're all in.
Are you, what arrondissement?
In the 10th.
In the 10th? Is that a nice one?
That's where I live, in the 10th arrondissement.
How much time do you split, if I can ask?
Well, it varies. So last year I was there for about 9 months.
Because you weren't busy.
This year I'll be there about 6 months.
Do you spend most of your time editing in Paris?
Yeah, the last 4 or 5 years, last 4 or 5 movies I've edited in Paris.
Is there less distraction? Also,
no, it's fun. Just I like living in Paris. The food's good.
I've heard. I've been there. Yeah, I agree with you. Nothing like a salade niçoise in the afternoon. A salade niçoise or something in the middle of the day. Well, maybe the next time we do this, maybe we'll do it in Paris.
Okay.
I'm actually going to be doing my first ever fundraiser coming up in September. I'm going to try to raise money so I can travel a little bit more frequently, at least once in a while. So I'm going to be doing a fundraiser to kind of expand, have better equipment than this stuff, and build a little bit of a home studio. But maybe I should rethink it. Maybe I should build a studio in Paris. I don't know.
Why not?
I love that city. And anyway, again, Fred Wiseman's film. This I think is your 40. I don't even. What does it matter? You're somewhere like 41 or something.
Yeah, 40 maybe. I don't know. I've forgotten. 43.
Check the retrospective if you want to see all the Film Forum website and see all the different wonderful documentaries. But Ex Libris, again, the New York Public Library opens here at the Film Forum in New York on September the 13th, which is, I believe, generally they open on Wednesdays, so I'm going to guess it's a Wednesday, and runs for 2 weeks.
Right.
it's not even that many filmmakers where they commit to 2 weeks anymore. That's great. Anyway.
Well, I hope it'll
You will. It will. Yeah. Well, we're going to make sure they get out there. We're going to tell them to and remind them as that day approaches or that time approaches. I guess that's all my questions this time. I kept bothering your people at Zipporah. I said, I'll even come to Boston just to get the long interview. But I think I've done a few of these, and collectively maybe I've gotten a lot of what I need. And also we did one funny, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a local Brooklyn film, little micro cinema in Williamsburg. Do you remember this? It was about right when you were releasing, I'm going to guess, what was the Jackson Heights, and they showed High School or something like that. Do you remember this? And you did a Skype call-in, and I was actually the guy that. And I did. They asked me to do it with you because they had heard you on my show, so I went over there, and it was a lot of fun. And we had all this technical issues at the beginning, but it went real smoothly. So I really I value these conversations.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
You for doing it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Stuff.